Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. I'm just in my office, hanging out on the floor. Actually, I have like a little nest, little workspace nest for myself. And I was just doing some journaling and some reflecting and some thinking um, about my daughter, about Rowan, and about some big changes that are coming up for us with our family, and some big things that will be currently have been going through with moving and selling the house, and big move that we have coming up, and all that. And I was just really reflecting on just how important it is to really think about how big of a deal this stuff is for her as well. And so, hey guys, hi Katie Lynn, hi Angel, thanks for joining, guys. So if you're just joining, I'm just talking about some do's and don'ts and some tips for helping our kids through tough times, helping them through transitions, helping them, when they're going through hurt, when they're going through anything stressful or overwhelming. And this goes for kids at like all ages as well. This can be adapted, whether it's a baby, whether it's a toddler, whether it's an adolescent, whether it's an adult child of yours. This is really important, just parenting information. And I mean, if you're a child care, if you work in child care, if you work with kids, if you're an auntie or an uncle or a foster parent or a teacher, like this is really important stuff. So I just kind of want to share a little bit about what I was just journaling on, what I was writing on. And hopefully this, speaks to someone today. Hopefully this is a message that someone else needs to hear today too. So let me give a little bit of background first. So this morning we had our first day, our first parent-teacher conference with Rowan's teacher. So she's 3 and she'll be 3.5 in January, and she's been going to a Montessori preschool program since September. And she absolutely loves it, and she's been thriving and doing really, really well. And so today we had our first parent-teacher day today, and that was so cool just to see her little projects that she's been working on, and some of the letters and her numbers and some of the things she's been doing. And it was really cool to just hear more about that. But I've been thinking a lot lately because I've shared on social media that, we sold our house at the end of the summer. And so we've been living with my in-laws in their basement for the last few months while we're figuring out our next steps. That's been a transition for her, to not be, in her house, to not have her own room. A lot of her toys have been packed up and in storage. And so, that's been a change for her as well. And today I was just really thinking about, after the parent teacher, I was really thinking about how I actually started to cry, because it makes me really sad to know she knows that we're moving. We've talked to her about it. And when I told her the other night, she said, Mommy, she goes, I want a new house, but Mommy, I want to stay at my old school. I don't want a new school. I don't want to leave my teacher and my friends. And it breaks my heart, because we're planning to leave the province. We're planning to move out of province. And so that's going to be a lot of change for her. It's going to be, it's already been a lot of change for her with selling the house. And again, transition with where we're living now, and the big changes coming. So all of that is to say that what I want to talk about today is how to help our kids through that stuff. Change is inevitable. What's the saying? It's like the only thing that is guaranteed is change, or whatever. I just butchered that, but you know what I mean. So as parents, I know that I deeply want to protect her from as much pain as I can. And I also know that that's not necessarily realistic. And I also know that that's not necessarily what's best for her, to protect her from everything. So what I want to talk about today is how we can help our kids through change, how we can help them through hard times, some tips, some do's and some don'ts for how to help them navigate changes and tough things. So again, whether it's a move, whether they're changing schools, whether there's a divorce or separation, or whether there's been, the loss of a loved one, a death, things like that. These tips, this information I want to share with you today relates to all of that, and it's relevant for all of that. So let me just share a little bit about what I was kind of reflecting on. And again, this is all based on attachment theory. And so this is based on like childhood psychology and attachment and relationships and stuff like that. So if you're ever interested in more, you can just research attachment theory, and you can learn a little bit more about this stuff. And specifically, I'm coming at this from a resiliency and trauma background, with how this information again can help to make those tough things that happen in life, make them so that they're not traumatizing. Because something can be hard, something can be overwhelming, but it doesn't necessarily have to result in trauma. And so my intention with sharing this information is just to help us to be able to better parent our kids, and to be able to better help them through those tough times that they will inevitably go through in life. Hi, Shannon. Hi, Danielle. Hi, Suj. Hey, Tracy. Hi, Corey. Thanks for joining, guys. Can you guys hear me okay? It's pretty windy outside, and I don't have a mic or my headphones or anything. So before I keep going, I just want to know, can you guys hear me okay before I really dive into this information? Pause for 1 second. So if you can just give me like a thumbs up, or just say like, yes, Jess, I can hear you. Because I can barely hear myself over the wind. All right. Okay. Maybe no one's watching. Okay, Heather, thank you. Perfect. Thank you, Heather. Okay, so this is what I was writing on. And again, this is information that can really be used in a lot of situations. And I also want to add, okay, thank you, Curly. I also want to add that it's a skill. It is something that is not innate. Okay, just because you're a parent, it doesn't mean that you automatically know this stuff, that you know how to do it, or that you will find it easy to do. The more that I work on myself, the more that I, heal my own attachment issues from childhood, the more that I heal my own past trauma and work on regulating myself, I have a greater capacity to do these things that I'm about to talk to you about. So again, it's not just something that is necessarily super easy to do. It takes practice. And again, it takes you having the capacity and the ability to do these things. So a lot of times that means working on some of your own issues to be able to hold the space in the way that you need to for your kids. So just prefacing with that. Okay. So this is basically, I'm just going to read what I wrote down in my journal, guys. So basically I was writing about how it hurts my heart to know how tough moving will be on Rowan. She's going to be moving away from her nan and pop. And I mean, right now, again, we're living with them in their basement, so she sees them every day. She's like best friends with her nanny and poppy. So that's going to be hard to be away from them. She loves her school. She loves her teachers and her classmates. So moving away from them is going to be really tough on her. Then adjusting to a new home, to a new school, to a new community, to a new bedroom, to new, even now when we drive, she recognizes everything. So that's very familiar to her. So lots of change. And so the first thing I wrote down for myself when I was like, how do I help her navigate this? The first thing, and this is really important, like none of these things are small things. And again, each of these tips that I'm going to give you today are things that require practice, and that might not come naturally to you, especially depending on what your childhood was like and what kind of parenting, your parents did with you. But the first thing is, when your kids are going through something tough, the first thing, which so many of us didn't get, and it's actually making me want to cry thinking about how important it is, but how often we don't get this thing. The first thing to do, it sounds so simple, is to acknowledge that it's tough, to acknowledge that, yes, the thing that's happening, the thing that's going on around you, yeah, that's tough. So like literally, guys, that's the first thing, acknowledging that it's tough, acknowledging that, yes, yeah, maybe you feel sad. Yeah, maybe you feel scared. Yeah, baby, it's not easy, is it? It's not easy to have all these big changes happening. Acknowledging it, that is the first and like most basic paramount thing. And again, a lot of us when we were kids, our parents didn't know this stuff. So a lot of us, something big and bad happened or scary or some big overwhelming change happened, and our parents didn't really talk to us about it. They didn't really acknowledge that that was hard on us or scary for us. They were maybe so caught up in their own stuff that they weren't able to notice that it was a big deal for us too. I talked to a lot of my clients, had parents who separated or divorced when they were younger, like when they were a kid, their parents separated. And a lot of times they say how it just they were just told that this was happening and then that was it. And there was no more conversation about it. And so these kids had all these overwhelming sensations and they didn't know what was happening, and they had questions that didn't get answered. They had emotions that didn't get paid attention to. And so this one huge, again, simple thing is to acknowledge that the thing that's happening is happening, and acknowledge that the thing that's happening, yeah, that's tough. So acknowledging that instead of just saying, oh, it's fine, or not saying anything at all, or ignoring it, or just hoping it'll go away. Acknowledging it. So again, acknowledging what's happening and acknowledging what feelings they might be experiencing. And what's really important here is to be able to give accurate reflection and feedback when you're acknowledging what's happening and when you're acknowledging what feelings they might be feeling. So for example, being able to say, yes, I know it's really scary, isn't it, to start at a new school. It's really scary to have to go and meet new people and to make new friends. Acknowledging that fear, that scared might be how they're feeling. Acknowledging if your child is feeling angry, acknowledging that and reflecting and saying those emotions, saying, yeah, I can see that you're feeling angry. I understand that you're feeling angry. I can see that you're really scared, or I can see that you're sad. So really acknowledging that it's tough and acknowledging and accurately reflecting what you're seeing. So accurately reflecting, like, yeah, I see that you're feeling sad, or I see that you're feeling angry or scared. For me, this is something that I've had to learn. Growing up, we didn't really talk about our emotions in my family, especially those bigger, heavier emotions like, jealousy and anger and fear and sadness and grief. We didn't really address those. Those were the things that didn't get acknowledged really in my family. And I know that this is really common for a lot of people. And so it took me a lot of skill to first be able to recognize and acknowledge and claim those emotions in myself. And that's why it's so important to be doing your own work as well, to be doing a lot of your own healing and growing, so that you can then accurately reflect that to your child. Especially in those, families where we grew up, where we didn't talk about emotions and where it wasn't really acceptable to have the heavier emotions, because a lot of our parents, they didn't have parents who knew how to deal with those emotions either. And so most people just tiptoe around them or stuff them down or pretend that those emotions don't exist, because so many people don't know what to do with them. So the better capacity that you have to witness and observe your emotions, all range of them, whether it's, joy and pleasure and happiness, or sadness and anger and jealousy and grief and rage, all of that is so, so important. So again, you're acknowledging that the thing is tough. You're acknowledging their feelings. You're accurately reflecting to them that you see that. That's one of them, like, oh my God, like every one of these steps is so important. But just think how meaningful. Think to a time in your life when someone has really seen you, really said to you, like, wow, like I see that you're really upset, and that's okay, and I'm so sorry. You see, like, you don't need to necessarily be doing anything to change that for them, but you're being with them through it. And this, as parents, can be one of the hardest things, to see our kids in pain. Like, it's gonna make me cry just thinking about it. It can be one of the hardest things. And again, we can't protect our kids from all of that pain, but again, we can do things to help them through it. So the next thing is, and this can be really uncomfortable for some people, again, depending just on your own history, depending on your own capacity for being with pain and emotions. But the next thing is to stay with them through the hurting. So that means just being with them. Sometimes that might mean saying, yeah, you know what, I see that you're feeling really upset right now. You know, do you want me to stay with you? Would you like a hug? You know, do you want to talk about it? And even like younger kids, you know, Rowan's at the age now where she knows what that stuff means. And when we talk about things, she might not have the words to describe the emotion she's feeling. But if I ask enough questions, we can get to the root of it. And so again, it's about staying with them through the pain, instead of, again, just being like, oh, you're fine, it's all going to be okay. Or saying, you know, stop crying, or it's not that big of a deal. You know, so many things that a lot of us have the tendency to do, because that's what our lived experience was as well. That's what happened when you showed pain or you know, intense emotion. You got shut down, or your parents didn't know what to do with it. So they, you know, whether they were well-intentioned or not, kind of shut it down. And so a lot of us as parents and adults don't know what the fuck to do with those emotions. And so for many of us, it can be very uncomfortable to see somebody having a big experience and going through pain. But being able to just stay with them through their pain is a gift that we can give to our kids. And again, this information, whether you have, you know, young kids or your kids are adults, you know, or even if it's just a friend or you're, you know, in a helping field, this information is vital information. So staying with them through the hurt. Letting them express whatever they need to express. And again, this can be a tough one for a lot of us, especially if we, again, didn't, you know, have that experience as kids ourselves of being able to express all of our emotions and feelings. If our parents didn't know what to do with them, then we would quickly learn, okay, well, I don't show those emotions because either I get in trouble or my parents freak out and they get overwhelmed, and then it just makes me feel worse. So it's just, for whatever reason, it's better for me not to show them. You know, there's so many reasons for why it might be that we're not comfortable with emotions, or that we don't know what to do with emotions. But letting our kids express what they feel, letting them have those big emotions, letting them show those big emotions without judging them, without shaming them, and without shutting them down. I know for me, even, you know, a year and a half ago, when Rowan would cry, my first instinct or my first reaction or response would be to shush her, to be like, it's okay, stop crying, don't cry, you don't need to cry, like, everything's okay, you know. Or if she fell down, I'd be like, you know what, I just would, like, stone face, I'd be like, you're fine, you know, because I didn't want to, like, freak her out. I thought that was, like, a good thing to do. But really what that was doing was, I wasn't being an accurate reflection for her. She falls down and she's in pain. of course, when you're in pain, you want to express that. You want to cry. But when I was just being a stonewall and I wasn't accurately reflecting to her what had just happened, that yes, she's in pain, but I was acting as though she wasn't, that's going to create this huge divide, this huge division and disconnection within her of being able to recognize when she was in pain and do something about it. There's so many people, and I've had this fear too. I'm like, I don't want to raise like a wimp. I don't want to raise this like kid who can't take care of herself or who's like hypersensitive or whatever. Not that any of those things are bad things, but I felt that way for a long time. I was afraid of disempowering her by being too soft on her. But the more that I learn about trauma, the more that I learn about resiliency, the more that I learn about attachment and parenting and all of this, you cannot ever love your kids too much. Okay, you can never be too loving on them. It doesn't mean that you have to baby them, but it does mean giving them accurate reflection, and it does mean letting them express those big emotions that they have. So again, it could mean anger. It could mean that they yell or that they want to hit something. These are normal reactions for kids to have, for people to have. As adults, we can learn kind of healthier ways of expressing those emotions. But as kids, like that's not something that they know how to do. They learn that from us. So they either learn to repress their big emotions, they learn to be afraid of them, or they learn how to express them in a healthy way. And so we can't model that for our kids if we can't do that ourselves. So for me, this is one of those things that's been so important in my own life, is learning how to not be afraid of my big emotions and to not repress them anymore. So the more that you can do that within yourself, the more that you'll have the ability to let your kids express those big emotions as well. So again, it's important to not be afraid of these big emotions. And for many of us, for me, I was so afraid of anger, and I was afraid of grief. I didn't know what to do with those two emotions because they were so repressed in me. I had never really, throughout most of my life, childhood and like adolescence and adulthood, I had never known what to do with those emotions. And so it's taken me a lot of learning. And again, this is not something that is just naturally innate to us. This is shit that we learn. We need to learn how to be with our emotions and learn how to healthily process these emotions. And that's something our kids learn from us. So again, not being scared of those big emotions, increasing your capacity to be with those emotions in yourself so that you can have greater capacity to be with those emotions in your kids as well. And again, that's an important part of helping them through tough times. And then the final piece, and again, this is something that this is like first and last, but all intermingled between each of those other pieces. And this is kind of just foundational in general as parents, something that is so important for us to do, is to stay attuned and connected to them throughout it all. When I say connected, I don't just mean physically. I mean like emotionally, to really be there for them emotionally. When I say attuned, I mean to be able to deeply notice how they're feeling and what they're needing. And again, for many of us, and I'm speaking about myself here too, for many of us, these are not things that come naturally, especially if we had any attachment issues with our parents when we were kids, or if, again, our parents weren't super in tune with their own needs and their own emotions, then that's not something that we would have learned. And so a big piece for me, a big piece of my journey as a parent has been learning how to reparent myself, how to like heal my inner child, and how to give myself and teach myself those things that I wasn't given and I wasn't taught as a kid myself. So being attuned, being able to notice what your kids are feeling, maybe even if they're not quite aware, being able to notice what it is that they're needing, staying connected to them emotionally and physically. And again, throughout all of this, and this is just for like life, that's an important, part of raising healthy, confident, resilient, happy kids. And then just to remember as well that kids are so resilient. I had to write that down for myself today in my notes too, because it's a reminder that I needed to hear today too, that yes, this move will be tough on her. It's already been, transition for her. It's already, she's already brought up some fears. Like she keeps talking about our old house. We haven't lived there in over 3 months now. It's about 3 and a bit months ago that we sold the house. And she talks about it still. And it's one of those things where we create space for her to talk about it. We don't want to just like ignore it and hope that she'll forget about it, Obviously, the fact that she's talking about it shows that she hasn't forgotten about it and there's still something there. And so I'll just keep that conversation going with her. So for example, maybe 2 months ago, so shortly after we'd moved, I was just asking her how she was feeling. It was like one night before bed, we were kind of snuggling after stories and snack and stuff. And I was like, baby, I said, how are you feeling about, how are you feeling about living at Nanny and Poppy's right now? And she said, that she told me this story about the moving truck. And she was like, she goes, and the moving truck fell off the road and everything fell out. And then all my toys are gone. And I said, oh, baby, I said, no, I said, your toys are not gone, my sweet girl. I said, I said, some of them are here at the house with us, but some of them are in boxes in the storage unit. And I said, and when we move to our new house, all those toys will be there again. And so I noticed that it was just like those little subtle things where, she was missing the house, and piece of it was that she was like missing her old toys and just things that, transitions and things that she thought she had lost. And so it's been really important that we just have stayed connected to her and stayed attuned to her and given her space to talk and to share how she's feeling. And for us, again, to not expect that she's going to naturally be able to tell us those things. So as parents, we ask her how she's doing. We ask her how she's feeling. And I know that for younger kids, like this isn't something that they necessarily have the words to do. But they'll tell you stuff, they'll tell you something, and it doesn't really matter what they're saying so much as the fact that you're connecting to them and wanting to know how they're feeling and how they're doing. And especially in times of transition, it's more important than ever to be connected and attuned to them. So for example, I think it was maybe Monday night that I had told her, to kind of prepare her. We've been talking to her about how we're going to be moving again soon, and telling her it's going to be a new house, like you'll have your own bedroom and things like that, but that she's going to be leaving her school and she'll have to say goodbye to her friends at school and her teacher and her green classroom. And then the next day at school, when it was time to pick her up, she was super clingy to her teacher, and she was kind of being disobedient. She was like running away from us when it was time to take her home from school. And if I didn't know the stuff that I know, if I wasn't learning about attachment and being attuned and trauma and resiliency and all that stuff, I wouldn't have realized that was a natural response for her. That wasn't her just like acting out. That's her, she is feeling scared and sad about the potential, the possibility, the future reality of leaving her classmates and her school and her teacher. And so she is kind of clinging to her teacher now because she doesn't want to leave her, because she's sad to leave her. Okay, so I could have looked at it as like, oh fuck, she's just being so disobedient and like she's not listening and I'm so annoyed. But instead I could have compassion because I could understand what was going on. Whether she's consciously doing it or not, I could realize that this is just a natural behavior in a child who is feeling big things inside that she doesn't know how to put into words. So it's my job as her mom to recognize that stuff and to understand it and to know what to do with it. And again, I say this with so much compassion for parents because literally parenting I did not understand this until I became a mom. Being a parent is the hardest job. It is the hardest job in the world. It really is. And part of the reason that I'm so invested in growing personally and healing personally is because I know the impact that it has on my daughter. I know the impact that it has on my child. And so again, I'm so thankful that I was able to recognize and able to understand that the way she was acting, it wasn't just her acting out. You know, it was her having these big emotions on the inside, just being sad to leave and scared to leave her school and her classmates and to move. And that was why she was acting that way. And so again, I just try to stay connected to her. I try to stay attuned to her needs and to her emotions and give her that space to talk about how she's feeling and to let her express those big feelings and emotions without judging her, without shaming her, without trying to shut her down. Noticing when I get uncomfortable, and I still get uncomfortable if she's really like putting her foot down and saying like no to something, or if she's really getting, showing a big emotion. I notice that I still get uncomfortable with big emotions sometimes. So that just kind of keeps showing me where I have more of my own work to do as well. But I feel like it's been night and day for me in the last last 7, 8, 10 months since I've started to, really dive into healing deeper layers of my own past pain and trauma and childhood stuff and, things that happened all throughout my life. The more that I heal that and the more that I come into connection with my own self and with my own emotions, I have a better capacity to be with her emotions, and I have a better capacity to be a better mom for her, which to me means everything in the world. I know if you're a parent watching this, you completely understand that. Even if you're not a parent, but you maybe someday want to be, or you have nieces and nephews, or you work with youth, or, for whatever reason you're watching this, it's resonating with you. So that's what I wanted to share today, guys. So I guess it was more so do's than don'ts, but I guess read between the lines and get the don'ts. But hopefully this could be informative for you. And again, I say all of this without judging you. And I hope that you don't feel guilty or judge yourself if you don't know this information, or if it's different than how you have acted or responded in the past. I say this totally from a place of, I did not know how to be this good of a mom, a year ago, 2 years ago, and I still have lots of growing and healing and lots of work to do, and I still fuck up sometimes as a mom, but I keep trying to do better. And this is, the kind of video, the kind of message for other parents or people who are out there who also want to do better. That's why you're here. That's why you're watching this. That's probably why you follow me in the first place. So yeah, I will leave it there because this went on way longer than I expected. Thank you so much for watching. If you've watched this, if you're catching the replay, then please feel free to, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to leave those below. Feel free to share the video. If you have questions and you don't feel comfortable, publicly commenting, then go ahead and shoot me a private message as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope that this could educate you and serve you in some way today. And again, I say all of this without judgment to you, and I don't want you to judge yourself or feel guilty or ashamed if you acted any way differently in the past as a parent. This is the stuff that many of us are learning now for the first time, because we did not get this stuff from our parents, and no judgment for them either. But now this generation of parents is our chance to really change these patterns. It's our chance to learn more so that we can do better for our kids, for ourselves, for our kids' kids, to really change those patterns and be able to really help our kids when they're going through tough times. So hopefully this has inspired you. Hopefully this has educated you and served you in some way today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.